Ethan, was at the lowest point in my life. At 26, I married my longtime girlfriend, Alice. Ever since, we've been there for each other. I absolutely loved Alice. She was my reason for living. It's a bit of an exaggeration to say she was my reason for living, but in essence, Alice was everything to me. Alice and I met in college, and we've been together ever since. But the way we met, it's a bit embarrassing. I was head over heels for her from the first sight and went all out, thinking she was the one. At first, Alice was taken aback, but her kindness and understanding only made me fall for her even harder. Eventually, I confessed that I wanted to marry her because she was Alice. Our relationship started quite passionately, but that was just the beginning. I believe Alice and I were doing well. But when I was about 30, Alice was diagnosed with cancer. By the time it was discovered, it had started to spread, and the doctors gave a terminal prognosis. I cried. I felt pathetic. Alice was the one suffering, not me. I tried not to cry in front of her, but she probably knew. She always acted cheerful in front of me, which was incredibly painful to watch. So I did everything I could to support her, to ensure that in the time she had left, she'd say she lived happily. We went on trips, and she ate her favorite foods every day. Rather than suffering for a long time, she wanted to live her life her way. Because that was Alice's wish. We laughed a lot and had fun. Thanks to that, Alice lived longer than the doctors had predicted. Ethan is kind of lonely, right? That's why I want to keep some memories. By doing that, you can remember the good times, laugh, and not feel lonely, don't you think? Alice always thought of me and departed for heaven with a smile on her face. For me, it felt like the world was ending. I tried to act strong in front of Alice, but when I was alone, I was just lost. Before I realized it, my house was a mess, and all I did was either stay at home or commute to work. Nothing was fun, and I couldn't find a reason to laugh. Every day, I felt like everything in life was over. But then, a turning point came into my life. It was a month after Alice had passed away. When I checked the mailbox after work, there was a letter from Alice. I was shocked. I hurriedly opened the envelope, and there were words written in Alice's handwriting. This letter is something I asked my parents to send after I am gone. If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer by your side, knowing you without me around. Your room is probably a mess, and you're likely feeling down, aren't you? Thinking that, here's a surprise for me. A gift certificate for a stay at a spa resort. I secretly bought it. Use this to take a little break and refresh yourself. Oh, and you better use it. If you don't share a photo from the trip with me, I'll haunt you by her bedside. The letter held Alice's thoughts and feelings. Alice had been thinking about what would become of me after she was gone. That's why she prepared such a thing for me. Alice, touched by her kindness, tears welled up in my eyes. There's no way to thank or repay her now. The thought makes tears flow uncontrollably. Sniffling, I open another piece of letter. However, instead of a letter filled with words, in the center of the paper it read, "Being by your side made me so happy. Thank you for enriching my life, filling it with love. I love you so much, Ethan." The stationery was slightly crumpled, with visible tear stains. I couldn't help but cry. Crying and crying and crying. The one who should be thanking is me. Alice, thank you for loving me and being with me. I want to see you again. While being gently rocked by the bus's movement, I gazed at the lush mountainous landscape. Today, I took a day off to head to the trip Alice gifted me. Honestly, I wasn't too enthusiastic, but Alice was looking forward to the pictures. I was being carried by the bus, thinking of how much Alice loved nature. She was passionate about traveling, especially places rich in nature. Even after her terminal diagnosis, she whimsically said she wanted to forest bathe. I rarely went to places rich in nature like mountains or rivers. I might have gone on school trips, and that's about it. I once wondered, looking at trees, what's so fun about it? But after being with Alice and experiencing nature, I was touched by the earth's bounty and the beauty of nature. It's a view you can't find in the city. There's a sense of escapism, and before I knew it, I too began to appreciate nature. While much of the view from the bus is shades of brown and green, occasionally rivers and campsites come into view. Speaking of which, Alice and I went camping often. When she first suggested camping, gathering the gear and all was a bit of a hassle, but it was fun. Struggling to light a fire, overcooking the barbecue, getting overly excited over small things and laughing together. Watching the flowing forest landscape, tears unknowingly flowed. Every time I remember Alice, there's an overwhelming sadness that pierces my heart. It's unbearably painful. Silently, I wept. Please, let me cry. I'm not strong enough to recover so quickly. Excuse me, are you okay? I was just quietly shedding tears, but the woman sitting across the aisle from me reached out with concern. I'm sorry, I'm fine, really. As I tried to nod in acknowledgement, I found myself frozen in place. The woman before me was breathtakingly beautiful. The long-haired woman, noticing my stunned expression, tilted her head and asked, is there something on my face? Snapping back to reality and wiping my tears, I hastily replied, sorry, you just remind me of someone I know. It wasn't just her beauty that caught me off guard. She was undoubtedly gorgeous, but I was struck by a kind of hazy feeling, like we'd met somewhere before, but I couldn't remember where. Where was it? Darn, I can't remember. As I was deep in thought, the woman made a slightly disappointed face and chuckled. Figures, right? She then mumbled something to herself, which I couldn't quite make out. Did I say something odd? Seeing her slightly forlorn profile, I instinctively tried to change the topic. Thank you for talking to me. It helped me pull myself together. It seemed like she was traveling alone, and if I continued to dwell on Alice, I'd end up ruining the trip she had planned for me. Maybe that's why I attempted to start a conversation. She looked surprised but responded with a gentle smile. I just thought it was a shame for such a handsome face to look so down. Are you traveling alone? The woman introduced herself as Meyer and mentioned she was staying at the same hotel for work. As I introduced myself and mentioned that this trip was a gift from my late wife, she responded, she must have been a wonderful woman. It's only natural to grieve when someone like her is gone. I thought she was truly a kind-hearted person, one who could genuinely connect with others. We still have some time before the bus arrives. Would you mind sharing some memories of your wife with me? Oh, I'm sorry. If it's too painful, you don't have to. It's just, I grew up in an institution and have always been single, so I've never really known the warmth of a family. Maya looked at me with a hint of envy. Although she seemed just a bit younger than me, she had a certain youthful innocence about her. Her words made me wonder if she had grown up starved of affection. They were so deeply sad and heavy. If you're okay hearing my stories, I've got plenty. With that, I began sharing the joyful memories I had with Alice. You two must have been a very close couple. Thank you for sharing that with me. Maya replied with a warm smile. She listened to my story till the end, and it felt like, after a long time, I had shared my memories with someone, which made my heart feel lighter. Ever since Alice passed away, I've been keeping to myself and haven't really talked to many people. But precisely because of that, I couldn't quite recall where I had met Maya before, and it was bothering me. While talking, I hoped I would remember, but sadly, I couldn't. It felt like a fishbone stuck in my throat, and the discomfort must have shown on my face. Maya looked puzzled and asked, "Is everything all right? You seem to be deep in thought." I gave her a smile. I didn't think it was that obvious. Well, I feel like I've met you somewhere before, but I just can't put my finger on it. Oh, I get it. It's frustrating when you can't remember something. She laughed, then added, let me help you clear that up, handing me a piece of paper. Was this an admission ticket? Actually, that inn has a small studio in its annex. Come check it out, she said with a smile, and at that moment, the bus came to a stop. After getting off the bus, I headed to the inn and had a pretty good time on my vacation. Though I wasn't really in the mood, chatting with Maya did lighten my spirits, and the thought of having a story to share with Alice cheered me up a bit. And I was curious about the studio Maya mentioned. This place, although an inn, apparently holds regular concert. At first, I wondered why an inn would have a studio, but it made sense given the musical events. Maya had mentioned that if I visited the studio, I'd understand the reason for my uneasiness. I guess I had to check it out. So, after enjoying the hot springs, I headed to the studio. And the sight I was met with was Maya in a dress, playing the guitar. Seeing her brought back a particular memory. Back when Alice was still with us. We often went to amusement parks for our dates. Camping was a bit expensive for us, so we usually opted for movies or parks. On one such day, look over there, they're holding some event. There was a performance on a stage at a small amusement park. A woman stood alone on the vast stage, holding a guitar. But there was hardly anyone watching. It was a weekday, so the low turnout was understandable. Without letting such things bother her, she began singing as she played the guitar. Her voice was incredibly clear and beautiful. As the music flowed, more and more people gathered around. Alice was deeply moved too. She's amazing. I'd love to hear her play again. I remember her saying that. Ah, now I get it. The performer that day was Maya. It was a long time ago, so I barely remembered her face, but the sound of her voice and the guitar was unforgettable. The knot in my throat loosened, and as Maya said, I felt a lot better. Her performance was so refreshing that it rejuvenated me. Come to think of it, when we heard Maya's performance back then, Alice and I had just started dating. The sweet and sour memories of those early days came flooding back. Meeting Maya today, here, felt like a gift from Alice. Alice sure had a way of sending surprises from afar. Thanks, Alice. Listening to Maya's song and reminiscing about Alice, strangely, there's no pain in my heart. Maya's song seemed to wash away my pain, allowing me to genuinely touch upon my memories of Alice for the first time in a while. After the performance, there was an opportunity for fans to shake hands with her. She seemed to have a good number of fans, all of them shining with excitement as they met her. As for me, I didn't have the courage to join in on the handshake session, so instead, I left a thank you note in a box for fan letters. It read, "Thanks to you, I remembered so many memories with my wife. But since then, I haven't seen her again. It's only natural, I suppose. She has fans, after all. I'm not someone who can just casually approach her." That's what I thought, and since I was traveling alone and the inn was pretty vast, the odds of bumping into her were slim. I probably won't see her again. Typically, crossing paths with someone by fate is a rare event. Once-in-a-lifetime encounters, you could say. That's the real charm of a journey. But then, surprisingly, never would have imagined meeting you on a blind date. I was shocked too, haha. 2 years later, I ran into Maya. And it was on a blind date. Because she had cut her long hair for her blind date photo, I didn't recognize her at first. By the way, the blind date was pretty much forced upon me by a friend. Rather, I was tricked into coming here. At first, my friend told me, "There's a beautiful woman. She's still young. You should start over," but unfortunately, I wasn't considering remarriage. I vaguely declined when the topic seemed to lean towards a blind date, but then I was invited to a casual get-together. Unlike a formal blind date, there's an easy way out of a social gathering, and I felt bad constantly turning down my friends' invitations. So I thought, just this once, but when I accepted the invite, I was completely set up. He'll pay for this later. But when I found out the other person was Maya, things felt different. With her, I actually wanted to chat a bit. I thought you're a celebrity, Maya. I assumed you'd have tons of people wanting to date you. Well, I don't really have that many fans. It's just that my mentor is quite famous, and people come to see me because of their name. Besides, I don't really see myself marrying a fan. It seemed like she was incredibly popular at that concert, but apparently, it just looked that way because I'm not in the know. Filling up that small studio doesn't make one famous. Moreover, Maya's main job isn't singing. She does it as a hobby. With such a beautiful voice, I honestly thought it was a waste she wasn't singing professionally. But according to Maya, it's just a hobby, so I can do it freely and enjoy it without any pressure. Guess there's something to be said about the pressures that come with going professional. Different strokes for different folks. Through these conversations, Maya and I grew closer. Turns out, our connection was destiny. We began dating and, before we knew it, a year had flown by. We clicked in many ways. We rarely fought, and our relationship was smooth. Perhaps our compatibility was spot on, or maybe it was all thanks to Alice. I felt as though Alice nudged me towards Maya. I was genuinely keen on pursuing a relationship with Maya. But I did wonder, was I good enough being a divorcee? When I voiced that concern, she firmly told me, "It doesn't matter. I want to be with you, Ethan." Hearing her say that made me really want to be with Maya forever. Of course, I hadn't forgotten about Alice. I never could. But if I keep living in the past, I feel like Alice would scold me. She'd probably tell me to pull myself together. So, I decided to move forward. "Will you marry me?" My second marriage proposal in life. I knelt before Maya, presenting a small ring and flowers. She broke into a big smile, joyfully saying, "I'd love to," as she accepted the ring. It felt incredible. I never want to experience that depth of sorrow again. Since Maya knew about Alice and my past, we get regular checkups together. Early detection increases the chances of a cure after all. And we didn't have a wedding ceremony. It was Maya's wish. "Your wedding with Alice is a precious memory. I wouldn't want to overwrite that." She was so considerate. However, every girl dreams of a wedding ceremony. So, as a small gesture, I surprised her with a photo shoot in wedding attire. She was absolutely thrilled, saying, "This will be a memory to cherish forever." Seeing Maya in that dress with a radiant smile, she looked truly happy. Just watching her filled my heart. "Hey Alice. If I told you I got remarried, would you be mad at me?" "No, knowing you, if I ever made Maya cry, you'd probably haunt my dreams scolding. Don't make your wife cry." The bond between Maya and me, somehow connected by Alice. I'll cherish this bond forever. So, everything's fine now. Sorry for causing so much worry. Thanks to Alice, I managed to move on. I intend to do for Maya all that I couldn't for Alice. That, I believe, would be my way of repaying both Maya for coming into my life, and Alice